Hey folks, welcome back for another build video where we're looking at the everyday carrier chest piece with the perfectly efficient talent on it. In addition to that named chest piece, we're also pairing it with a 3-piece set of Hunter's Fury with the Ninja Bike Messenger backpack to get us the 4-piece bonus for Hunter's Fury, the 2-piece bonus for Bellstone Armory, and the 2-piece bonus for Brazos de Arquebus and the Picaro's holster. So getting into this one, I will talk about the rest of the build in just a moment, but I want to focus on the perfectly efficient talent for a moment, not least of all because I've wasted more time than I'm willing to admit figuring out how the math works behind this talent. So first and foremost, let's talk about the differences between perfectly efficient and efficient, the normal version of the same talent. Where the perfectly efficient version reads as such: using an armor kit has a 75% chance not to consume the armor kit. Specialization armor kit bonuses are increased by 100%, and it requires 10 seconds to arm this talent. So moving in reverse order, requiring 10 seconds to arm the talent just means that once you equip the chest piece, there are 10 seconds before the perfectly efficient talent is active. The second paragraph there is the same between the perfect and the normal version of this talent. Bonuses are increased by 100%. And we'll get into that in more detail in a little bit. But before that, the first paragraph here, using an armor kit has a 75% chance not to consume an armor kit. That is an increase of 25% when compared to the normal version of efficient, where using an armor kit has only a 50% chance not to consume the armor kit. So the reason that we're revisiting the perfectly efficient talent is largely due to the new Title Update 20 mechanic, where now, in addition to holding the armor kit button to replenish 100% of your armor, you also have the ability to instantly use an armor kit to replenish 25% of your armor on a 5-second cooldown. So what that gives you is, in the middle of a firefight, the ability to instantly apply a 25% armor kit to get you out of trouble or to keep you from going down, but it has the obvious downside of consuming the same armor kit that would have applied 100% of your armor if you were able to just hold the button down for a few seconds. So while this is a benefit, regardless of anything else, it's really cool that we now have the ability to either instantly apply 25% of an armor kit or still replenish 100% by holding down the button. Would be to pair this new instant use armor kit ability with the perfectly efficient talent. So the bottom line here is that a 75% chance not to use an armor kit every time you use an armor kit is actually more complex of a math problem than you would initially think, or at least more than I initially thought. But I was able to rough out a basic probability chart, which I'll show up on screen here. The main takeaway here is that box that I'm showing on screen. You have a greater than 50% chance to use between 8 and 16 armor kits before you run out of armor kits. And in addition to that, through some limited in-game testing, we were able to get roughly 13 uses of our armor kits before we ran out. So while you could get as low as 4 uses or even as high as 30 or even more uses before you run out, the most likely values are between, again, 8 and 16, with a tested average of around 13. So as we move forward with this build, that's what I would keep in your head, kind of the expectation of getting roughly 8 to 12 or even as high as 16 uses of your armor kits before you run out, using the perfectly efficient talent. So while you are sacrificing other chest talents here, what the perfectly efficient talent does with the new instant use armor kit is gives you a great way to instantly get 25% of your armor back, and with the perfectly efficient talent, there is a significant chance that you're not going to actually use that armor kit, and you're going to get to use the exact same armor kit again in 5 seconds if you need it. So with that out of the way, let's get into this one. For the specialization, we've gone with Firewall, and that is for one main reason. That is the extracellular matrix mesh, where your armor kit recovers 200% armor and 200% health over 10 seconds. As you can see, there's an armor kit theme going for this build, and what's really nice about this talent is even with the instant use armor kits, this talent still applies. So even though you're only getting 25% instantly, you will still get the full armor kit repair over 10 seconds. So between this, the perfectly efficient talent, and the new instant use ability, you can essentially spam armor kits every 5 seconds and get some ridiculous armor recovery over the length of an encounter. In addition to that, the Firewall Tactical Link and the special Firewall variant of the Striker Ballistic Shield are both beneficial here on this build, as you'll see later. For our primary weapon, we've gone with the Scorpio shotgun. It just pairs so well with any Hunter's Fury build. Obviously, if you're doing a more player versus player focused setup, you could swap this shotgun out for something else that is close range. The new Ouroboros SMG comes to mind. But personally, especially for PvE encounters, the Scorpio is just so great. As you can see there, you have the Septic Shock talent. Shooting a target applies a stack of venom, which lasts for 10 seconds. Increasing stacks adds more severe debuffs to the target. And obviously you have those critical disorient and shock debuffs at 3 and 6 shots respectively. And then of course at 7 shots, targets take an additional 20% damage from all sources and stacks no longer increase. For a secondary weapon, we've gone with Emmeline's Guard, primarily for the perfect preservation talent down there, just keeping the whole armor kit repair theme going. Killing an enemy repairs 15% armor over 5 seconds, so now in addition to the armor kit abilities that you have on this build, you also have perfect preservation as another way to repair your armor in an encounter. For the sidearm here, you can go with pretty much anything you want, but we've gone with the TDI card custom for that +1 skill tier in the second attribute slot. And then for the talent, we've gone with Future Perfect. Weapon kills grant +1 skill tier for 15 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Really, this sidearm is only going to be used situationally for those times that you want an additional skill tier. You can pull out your sidearm, use whatever skill you put in those skill slots, and then swap back to your primary weapon when the skill is either done or the benefit has been realized. For mask, we've gone with the aforementioned Hunter's Fury here with the 2-piece bonus provided by the Ninja Bike Messenger backpack. We get 15% shotgun damage and 15% SMG damage. You can obviously see that reflected in our primary and secondary weapon choices. And then down here we have the weapon damage core, and then we've gone with a secondary attribute of headshot damage, and then we also have headshot damage here in the mod slot. So I want to talk about this really quickly. We've gone with headshot damage instead of critical hit chance or critical hit damage here, kind of for 2 reasons. One is because we've gone with the shotgun here, we can get nice and close and get headshot kills fairly easily, particularly in PvE setups. And because we have 3 gear set pieces here on this build, where we're obviously going to lose one of our 2 secondary attribute slots, it's a lot harder to build into critical hit chance and critical hit damage, particularly for a Hunter's Fury build that doesn't give you any of those bonuses in the gear set itself. So what I like to do on these kind of builds is go into headshot damage instead, knowing that on a close and personal build like this, you can get up and close and personal with your enemies and get those headshots fairly reliably, giving you all of the benefit of that headshot damage, as opposed to having to split it between chance and damage just to try and get some of that benefit back. For backpack, we have the aforementioned Ninja Bike Messenger backpack, for the obvious reason of giving us the Resourceful talent, which slots in with any equipped gear set and or a brand set item to fulfill a requirement towards unlocking a gear set's bonus. That also applies to brand set bonuses. And this does, of course, unlock bonuses from multiple sets simultaneously. As we said off the top, we're getting the 4-piece bonus for Hunter's Fury, the 2-piece bonus for Bellstone Armory, and the 2-piece bonus for Brazos to Arquebus. As we've already talked about at length, we have the everyday carrier for our chest piece here. With our Ninja Bike backpack, we have 1% armor regen and 10% armor on kill. So again, just yet another way to repair our armor through an encounter. We've left the armor core up there because this is a close and personal build. A little bit of armor doesn't hurt. On top of that, all of the armor regen percentages obviously benefit from having more armor, so the armor core here isn't too bad to keep. And on top of that, it allowed us to roll headshot damage, and then we also have weapon handling natively in that other secondary attribute slot. And then here we've gone with headshot damage in the mod slot as well. And then of course we do have the perfectly efficient talent. I won't read it all through again, but again, the idea here is that you maximize the number of uses of your armor kits that you get before they all run out. And again, as we stated there, you're going to get roughly 8 to 16 uses on average, which personally I think is quite a significant number to be able to utilize. For our gloves, we have our second piece of Hunter's Fury, giving us that 3-piece bonus of 20% armor on kill and 50% health on kill. Again, just rolling in on the number of ways that we can repair our armor and our health in an encounter. And then, of course, again, here we have a weapon damage core and headshot damage in that secondary attribute slot. For our holster, here we have the aforementioned Picaro's holster, which gives us the 1 and 2 piece brand bonuses from Brazos to Arquebus of 10% skill haste and +1 skill tier. That second one there is the more beneficial for this build, as it increases the skill tiers for both our chem launcher down there and the striker ballistic shield that we've gone with. On top of that, we have headshot damage in that secondary attribute slot, and then we obviously have the unique benefit of a weapon damage core in our secondary attribute slot as well. And then for our Kneepads here, we have our third and final piece of Hunter's Fury. Again, paired with the backpack, it gives us the 4-piece bonus of Apex Predator. Enemies within 15 meters receive a debuff, amplifying your weapon damage against them by 20%. Killing a debuffed enemy with your weapon disorients other enemies within 5 meters and amplifies weapon damage by 5% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. And again, here we have the core attribute of weapon damage and the secondary attribute of headshot damage. So for our skills here, we've gone with the Riot Foam Chem Launcher and the Striker Ballistic Shield. We'll talk about this second one first, as it is much more integral to the way this build functions. As we mentioned off the top, this is the firewall-specific variant of the Striker Ballistic Shield, which allows for both the Jetstream Flamethrower to be used while equipped, and it also boosts the damage of the user and all allies behind them based on the number of enemies in front of the shield. As you'll see later in the gameplay, that is indicated by a cone that is emanating from your shield whenever you deploy it. And as you can see down there, the damage bonus per enemy is 12%. So as you can imagine, that stacks up quite nicely if you have multiple enemies in front of your shield while you're firing. And along with the Scorpio Shotgun and the Hunter's Fury 4-piece bonus, it all lends itself to a very sneaky, really good group support build here, even though you are putting out quite a bit of damage on your own. One of the reasons I run this build as opposed to an all-out damage build a lot of the times is if I'm trying to buff the damage of my allies as well as myself. I'll throw this one on. And again, make sure you have that Striker Ballistic Shield out and you can get those damage bonuses rolling and really help you cut through an encounter. And then as we scroll down a little bit, just to verify, we have a tier 5 shield between our armor cores and the skill tiers that we've stacked up on this build. And then for our other skill, we've gone with the Riot Foam Chem Launcher, as the Ensnare status effect is a great way to stun lock your enemies in either player versus environment or player versus player modes. The Riot Foam Chem Launcher is a great one to run, but obviously this slot in particular is much more preferential. You could go with any number of skills here, including the Reviver Hive. Given how up close and personal this build, you will be running on the edge a lot of the time, so if you find yourself going down a lot, might I suggest swapping to the Reviver Hive here, as it'll give yourself a way to get you up without having to rely on any of your allies. But with that, let's wrap up this build. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, particularly of the perfectly efficient talent as it pairs with the new instant armor kit ability that was introduced in Title Update 20. On top of that, as always, please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this, and tell your friends about the channel so you can continue to help us grow and make videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.
Detecting additional hostile contacts. Incoming hostiles detected. Point nearby. Join us and be part of something great.
broadcast was a little depressing. I guess people don't like to think about food supply issues.